The 1970s were a unique time for Black kids, filled with powerful experiences and cultural moments that shaped their world. But what stood out during that decade? Here are 25 memories that African Americans who grew up then will never forget. Watching Soul Train every Saturday morning was more than just entertainment for Black kids in the 1970s. It was a cultural experience that brought the entire community together. Don Cornelius, with his smooth voice and cool demeanor, hosted a show that celebrated Black music, dance, and style like nothing else on television. Kids would rush to finish their chores just to catch the latest episode, eager to see their favorite artists perform and watch dancers move down the Soul Train line with incredible moves. The show featured everyone from The Temptations to Marvin Gaye, showcasing the best in soul, funk, and rhythm and blues. For many Black kids, Soul Train was proof that their culture was beautiful, exciting, and worthy of celebration. It was not just a television show. It was a weekly reminder that Black excellence deserved to be seen and heard. Wearing afros, dashikis, and embracing the natural hair movement was a powerful statement of pride for Black kids in the 1970s. During this time, many young people rejected the pressure to conform to white beauty standards and instead celebrated their African heritage. The afro became an iconic symbol of Black power and identity, with kids and teens proudly sporting their natural hair in full rounded styles. It was not just about fashion, it was about reclaiming their roots and showing the world that Black beauty was something to be proud of. Dashikis, with their bright colors and African patterns, became popular clothing choices for those who wanted to connect with their ancestry. Wearing these garments was a way to honor the past while fighting for a better future. Parents and community leaders encouraged this movement, teaching kids that their hair and culture were beautiful just as they were. Watching the Jackson 5 dominate radio and television was an unforgettable experience for Black kids in the 1970s. Michael Jackson and his brothers burst onto the scene with infectious energy, catchy songs, and dance moves that had everyone trying to imitate them. Hits like I Want You Back and ABC played constantly on the radio, and kids would gather around to watch them perform on variety shows and music programs. The Jackson 5 were not just talented musicians. They were young, relatable, and proof that Black kids could achieve superstardom. For many children, seeing the Jackson 5 on television meant seeing themselves represented in a positive and exciting way. They showed that talent, hard work, and charisma could break down barriers and capture the hearts of audiences everywhere. Their matching outfits, synchronized choreography, and undeniable charm made them role models for an entire generation. Seeing Black families on primetime television with shows like Good Times was groundbreaking for Black kids in the 1970s. Before this era, Black families were rarely portrayed on TV in meaningful ways. Good Times changed that by showing the Evans family navigating life in a Chicago housing project with humor and love. Kids related to the struggles and triumphs of characters like JJ, Thelma, and Michael as they dealt with everyday challenges. The show tackled serious issues like poverty, racism, and family dynamics while still making audiences laugh. For Black children, watching at home, it was powerful to see a family that looked like theirs facing similar situations. It made them feel seen and validated. Good Times was not just entertainment, it was representation that mattered deeply. Families would gather in living rooms every week to watch together, discussing the episodes and relating them to their own lives. Listening to funk music from groups like Parliament Funkadelic, Earth, Wind and Fire, and Ohio Players was a defining part of life for Black kids in the 1970s. Funk was more than just music. It was a feeling, a movement, and a celebration of Black creativity and freedom. The funky bass lines, powerful horns, and infectious grooves made it impossible to sit still. Kids would dance in their living rooms, at block parties, and anywhere they could hear the music playing. Parliament Funkadelic brought wild costumes, theatrical performances, and a sound that was completely unique. Earth, Wind, and Fire combined funk with soul, jazz, and disco, creating anthems like September and Shining Star that became instant classics. Ohio players delivered hits like Fire and Love Roller Coaster that dominated the airwaves. For Black youth, funk music was a source of pride and joy. Visiting Black-owned barbershops and beauty salons was an essential part of life for Black kids in the 1970s. These places were more than just spots to get a haircut or style. They were community hubs where families gathered, news was shared, and bonds were strengthened. Barbershops buzzed with conversation about everything from local events to politics, sports, and civil rights. Kids would sit and listen as adults debated and laughed, absorbing the wisdom and stories being shared. Barbershops and beauty salons were equally important, especially for young girls who learned about hair care, self-confidence, and community from the women around them. The smell of hair products, the sound of clippers, and the warmth of familiar faces made these spaces feel like home. Black-owned businesses like these provided jobs, supported the local economy, and gave people a sense of pride in their community. Watching the rise of Black exploitation films like Shaft and Superfly was an exciting yet complicated experience for Black kids in the 1970s. These movies featured Black heroes who were tough, stylish, and unapologetically cool. Shaft, with his leather coat and confident swagger, became an icon who stood up to injustice and took control of his own story. Superfly showcased the realities of street life with a soundtrack that became legendary. For many Black kids, seeing strong Black protagonists on the big screen was thrilling because it showed them people who looked like them as leaders and heroes. Hollywood had rarely given them that kind of representation. These characters were not sidekicks or stereotypes. They were leading men who commanded attention and respect. However, the films also sparked debate within Black communities. Some saw them as empowering, while others worried they glorified negative stereotypes and lifestyles. Watching Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and other Black athletic heroes dominate sports was a source of immense pride for Black kids in the 1970s. Kareem was not just a basketball player. He was a towering figure who combined incredible skill with intelligence and a strong sense of identity. His signature skyhook was unstoppable, and his success on the court inspired countless young people to dream big. Beyond basketball, athletes like Muhammad Ali, Hank Aaron, and O.J. Simpson were household names who showed what Black excellence looked like in sports. These athletes were more than their statistics and championships. They represented strength, determination, and the ability to. They helped Black kids overcome obstacles. Seeing these heroes succeed on such a grand stage gave young people role models to look up to and proof that they too could achieve greatness. Celebrating Kwanzaa in Black households was a meaningful tradition that gained popularity throughout the 1970s. This 7-day celebration, which takes place from December 26th to January 1st, was created to honor African heritage, culture, and values. For many Black families, Kwanzaa offered an opportunity to connect with their roots and teach their children about principles like unity, self-determination, and collective work. Each night, families would light a candle on the Kinara and discuss one of the 7 principles, known as the Nguzo Saba. Kids participated in crafts, songs, and storytelling that celebrated African traditions and Black culture. American experiences. The celebration often included traditional foods, colorful decorations in red, black, and green, and gift-giving that emphasized creativity and heritage. For Black kids in the 1970s, Call Wanzaa was more than just a holiday. It was a way to honor their ancestors and build pride in their identity. Watching Schoolhouse Rock on Saturday mornings was a shared experience for all American kids in the 1970s, including black children who eagerly tuned in. Songs like I'm Just a Bill, Conjunction Junction, and 3 is a Magic Number taught grammar, math, and civics through catchy tunes and colorful animation. For black kids, these short educational segments were a fun break between cartoons, making learning feel effortless and entertaining. The music stuck in their heads long after the shows ended, helping them remember lessons they learned in the school. What made Schoolhouse Rock special was its ability to reach kids of all backgrounds, offering knowledge. It was presented in a format that felt like play rather than work. Families would often sing along together, and kids would show off what they learned to their friends and teachers. While the show was not specifically about black culture, it was part of the Saturday morning ritual that brought joy and education into black households across America. Listening to Richard Pryor's groundbreaking comedy albums and watching his concerts was an experience that resonated deeply with black families in the 1970s. Pryor was a comedic genius who spoke honestly about race, poverty, relationships, and the black experience in America. His raw, unfiltered humor tackled subjects that others were afraid to touch, making audiences laugh while also making them think. For black kids who were old enough to understand, hearing his comedy was like hearing their own lives reflected back with brutal honesty and sharp wit. His storytelling ability and willingness to be vulnerable set him apart from other comedians of his time. Parents would play his albums while the kids were asleep, but older children often caught snippets and were captivated by his voice and delivery. Pryor had a massive influence on comedy and culture, showing that black voices and black stories deserve to be heard on their own terms. Listening to Motown Records artists who were still dominating the music charts was a source of pride for black kids in the 1970s. Although Motown had its roots in the 1960s, the label continued to produce hit after hit throughout the 70s. Artists like Stevie Wonder, Diana Ross, The Supremes, and Marvin Gaye remain cultural icons, their music playing constantly on radios and turntables in black homes. Songs such as Superstition, Ain't No Mountain High Enough, and What's Going On became anthems that spoke to the soul of the black community. For kids, hearing those smooth, soulful sounds meant feeling connected to something bigger than themselves. Motown was not just a record label. It was a symbol of black excellence and creativity. Families would gather to listen to these artists, singing along and dancing in their living rooms. The music brought joy, comfort, and a sense of unity that today's generation may find hard to fully grasp. Seeing plastic furniture covers protecting living room couches was a common sight in black households during the 1970s. These clear, crinkly covers were placed over sofas and chairs to keep them looking new and pristine for as long as possible. For many families, furniture was a significant investment, and protection was a priority. Kids knew that the good furniture with the plastic covers was not for everyday use. It was reserved for special occasions, company, or Sunday dinners. Sitting on those covered couches meant dealing with the sticky, uncomfortable feel of plastic against your skin, especially in the summer heat. But it also meant you were in the formal living room, which carried a certain level of importance. The plastic covers became a symbol of pride and care, showing that the family valued what they had and wanted to maintain it. For today's youth, the idea of covering furniture in plastic might seem odd, but for black kids in the 1970s, it was just part of home life. Going disco roller skating at black-owned rinks was one of the most exciting activities for black kids in the 1970s. Rinks became popular hangout spots where kids and teens could skate to the hottest disco, funk, and soul hits. The flashing lights, the DJ booth, and the smooth wooden floors created an electric atmosphere that was impossible to resist. Kids would lace up their rented skates and glide across the rink, showing off their moves and trying to impress their friends. The couples' skate was a big deal, and the music choices during those moments often led to nervous excitement and budding crushes. Black-owned rinks were especially important because they provided safe, welcoming spaces for Black youth to gather, socialize, and have fun. The sense of community at these rinks was strong, with families often attending together on weekend nights. For Black kids in the 1970s, roller skating was more than just a pastime. It was a cultural experience filled with music, laughter, and unforgettable memories. Having Ebony and Jet magazines in every Black household was a staple of life in the 1970s. These publications were more than just magazines. They were lifelines to Black culture, news, and achievement. Ebony featured in-depth articles about Black leaders, entertainers, and everyday heroes, while Jet provided quick updates on current events and stories that mattered to the Black community. Families would eagerly wait for the latest issues to arrive, flipping through pages filled with photographs, interviews, and advertisements that reflected their lives. For kids, looking at these magazines meant seeing people who looked like them succeeding, thriving, and making history. The magazines covered everything from politics and civil rights to fashion and entertainment, offering a well-rounded view of Black life in America. Parents often saved issues, creating collections that documented important moments in history. Ebony and Jet were trusted sources that Black families relied on to stay informed and connected to their community. Attending Sunday church services with elaborate hats and choir performances was a cherished tradition for Black kids in the 1970s. Church was not just a place of worship, it was the heart of the community where families gathered to celebrate their faith, connect with neighbors, and find strength. Women wore stunning hats in every color and style imaginable, turning Sunday morning into a fashion show of elegance and pride. Kids would dress in their Sunday best, knowing that church was a special occasion that required respect and effort. The choir performances were powerful, with voices rising in harmony to sing gospel songs that stirred the soul. The music was emotional, uplifting, and often brought people to tears or to their feet in praise. For children, sitting through long services could be challenging, but the sense of belonging and community made it worthwhile. Church taught them values, discipline, and the importance of faith and family. Participating in Black Panther breakfast programs in local communities was a vital experience for many Black kids in the 1970s. The Black Panther Party launched free breakfast programs to ensure that children in underserved neighborhoods started their day with a nutritious meal. For kids who might not have had access to breakfast at home, these programs were life-saving. Volunteers would prepare hot meals like eggs, grits, toast, and juice, serving them with care and warmth. The program was not just about food, it was about showing Black children that their community cared about their well-being and future. Kids would gather in churches, community centers, or Black Panther breakfast programs brought families together in school cafeterias before class, eating together and building friendships. The breakfast programs also taught important lessons about self-sufficiency, community support, and activism. For many Black kids, these meals were their first introduction to the idea that people could come together to solve problems and take care of one another. Playing double dutch and hand clap games in the neighborhood was a daily ritual for Black kids in the 1970s. These games required skill, rhythm, and coordination, and they were a source of endless entertainment. Double dutch involved two long ropes turning in opposite directions while one or more kids jumped in the middle, performing tricks and rhymes. The sound of ropes slapping the pavement and kids chanting became the soundtrack of summer afternoons and after-school hours. Hand clap games like Miss Mary Mac were equally popular, with kids creating intricate patterns and songs that tested their memory and timing. These games brought kids together, fostering friendships and a sense of community. There was no need for expensive toys or electronics. All they needed was each other, some rope, and their imagination. For today's generation, the simplicity and joy of these games might be hard to understand, but for Black kids in the 1970s, they were essential parts of childhood. Knowing that wooden spoons were the universal discipline tool was a reality for Black kids in the 1970s. In many households, the wooden spoon was not just for cooking, it was a symbol of authority and a reminder to stay in line. Parents and grandmothers would keep one handy, and just the sight of it was often enough to correct misbehavior. Kids learned quickly that talking back, acting out, or breaking rules would result in consequences, and the wooden spoon was one of those consequences. While discipline methods have changed over the years, for Black families in the 1970s, this was a common and accepted practice, a way to teach respect and obedience. It was not about cruelty, it was about structure and making sure children understood boundaries. The wooden spoon became legendary in Black households, often referenced with a mix of humor and respect in later years. For today's youth, this kind of discipline might seem harsh, but for Black kids growing up in the 1970s, it was simply part of life. Watching Alex Haley's Roots miniseries in 1977 was a transformative experience for Black families across America. This groundbreaking television event told the story of Kunta Kinte and his descendants, tracing the painful journey from Africa through slavery to freedom. For 8 consecutive nights, Black households gathered around their televisions, watching with tears, anger, and pride as their history unfolded on screen. Kids sat beside their parents and grandparents, asking questions and absorbing the weight of what they were seeing. Roots was not just entertainment, it was education, validation, and a powerful reminder of where Black people came from and what they had survived. The miniseries sparked conversations in homes, schools, and churches about identity, heritage, and resilience. For many Black kids, it was the first time they saw their history portrayed so vividly and honestly on television. The impact of Roots was profound and lasting, shaping how an entire generation understood their past and themselves. Wearing platform shoes and bell-bottom jeans was essential fashion for Black kids in the 1970s. These bold styles were everywhere, from school hallways to block parties, and they represented confidence, individuality, and a connection to the vibrant culture of the decade. Platform shoes added height and flair, with thick soles that made a statement with every step. Bell bottoms flared out at the ankles, creating a silhouette that was instantly recognizable and undeniably cool. For Black youth, fashion was a form of self-expression and pride. They paired their outfits with bright colors, funky patterns, and accessories that showed off. Parents often sewed or tailored clothes at home, making sure their kids looked sharp and stylish. The fashion of the 1970s was loud, unapologetic, and fun. It reflected the energy and optimism of the era. For today's generation, these styles might seem over the top, but for Black kids in the 1970s, they were the height of cool. Shopping at corner stores owned by Black families in the neighborhood was a regular part of life for Black kids in the 1970s. These small stores sold everything from candy and snacks to bread, milk, and household essentials. For kids, the corner store was a place of freedom and excitement, where they could spend their allowance on treats like Now and Later's, penny candy, and ice pops. The store owners often knew every family in the neighborhood by name, greeting customers with warmth and familiarity. These businesses were more than just convenient, they were vital. Corner stores were parts of the community that provided jobs, supported local families, and kept money circulating within Black neighborhoods. Kids would run errands for their parents, picking up items and chatting with the owners along the way. The corner store was a gathering spot where neighbors caught up on news, and kids learned the value of supporting Black-owned businesses. For today's youth, the corner store experience has largely disappeared, but for Black kids in the 1970s, it was a cherished part of daily life. Understanding Muhammad Ali's cultural impact beyond boxing was something Black kids in the 1970s experienced firsthand. Ali was not just the greatest boxer of all time. He was a symbol of Black pride, resistance, and courage. His refusal to fight in the Vietnam War, his conversion to Islam, and his outspoken stance on racial injustice made him a hero to many in the Black community. Kids admired his confidence, his wit, and his willingness to stand up for what he believed in, even when it cost him his titles and reputation. Watching Ali fight was an event that brought families and communities together, with everyone gathered around televisions and radios cheering him on. His famous quotes and bold personality made him larger than life. For Black children, Ali represented the idea that you could be unapologetically yourself and still succeed. He showed them that strength came in many forms, not just physical, but moral and emotional as well. Making homemade ice cream from hand-cranked churns at family gatherings was a beloved tradition for Black kids in the 1970s. During summer barbecues, family reunions, and holiday celebrations, someone would bring out the old-fashioned ice cream churn, and the process would begin. Kids would take turns cranking the handle, their arms getting tired as the mixture inside slowly transformed into creamy, delicious ice cream. It was hard work, but the reward was worth it. The anticipation built with every turn of the crank, and when the ice cream was finally ready, everyone would gather around for a taste. Homemade ice cream was a special treat that brought families together, creating memories that lasted a lifetime. The flavors were simple but satisfying, often vanilla, chocolate, or peach. For today's generation, ice cream comes from the freezer aisle, but for Black kids in the 1970s, the process of making it was just as important as eating it. Smelling hot combs used to straighten hair on Sundays was a sensory experience that Black kids in the 1970s will never forget. Sunday mornings often meant getting ready for church, and for many girls, that included having their hair straightened with a hot comb heated on the stove. The smell of the hot metal pressing through hair grease and natural hair filled the kitchen, a scent that was both comforting and slightly nerve-wracking. Kids knew to sit still and stay patient while their mothers or grandmothers worked carefully to avoid burning their scalp or ears. The process could take a long time, but it was a ritual that connected generations. Girls learned about hair care, beauty standards, and the importance of presentation. While the natural hair movement was growing, many families still valued the tradition of straightening hair for special occasions. For Black kids in the 1970s, the smell of the hot comb was a reminder of Sunday routines, family bonds, and the care that went into looking their best. Which of these moments from the 1970s hit closest to home for you? Drop a comment below with your favorite memory, hit that like button, and subscribe so you never miss another trip down memory lane.